Hey everyone, Dan here. We are about 40 minutes after market close on Monday, March 29th. Wanted to take a look at some of the stocks we've been watching and some new ones. If you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And let's get right into it. So AMC is actually holding up really well in my opinion. This chart is really messy because we've been watching AMC for a long time, but the chart still holds up, so I don't erase it and start over. Just to sort of catch you up to what's most important to what we're looking at today, this area here, when this was happening, I basically said, AMC is risking this 911 level, which I had fought so hard over the course of so many days and weeks to establish. And I said, if it gives this up, it's going to be at risk for really plummeting. And it had already taken this big beat down here. And what it did was the very next day, it had this huge run up, pushed itself off of that 911 and even got itself back into its cushion of support with all of these areas in yellow. So it's holding that quite nicely. So even when we see this big pushback from Friday and then the sideways action today, to me that actually looks really solid. It's holding now this 1009 level really consistently. And if we look back to this low that it had to hold, in my opinion, we see that it is establishing potentially a trend line to lead itself back up through the 11s off of that. Now, the weird thing is this trend line is established, like the bottoms are establishing with a couple of days gap in between them. It's because it did this really crazy action. So I don't know that it would actually continue to walk itself up this way. Because that's not how it started, but I would look for it to hold this white trend line, and if it can continue to, then we're in really good shape. Apple, which I think we may have covered once before in a standalone video, but that might not even be true. But Apple has had a bit of a sell-off recently, but what stock hasn't? I'm sure there are some, but most stocks have gotten pretty big pushback through the month of March. And so what I would be looking for if I were an Apple, it started to establish a series of higher lows. So we have low, 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 and so all of those being higher than the last is a good sign, obviously. And but if I were in it, I would have pretty tight cut losses. This is 120.78 and 119.22, just because I do think that when the floor establishes, it'll be pretty obvious. And so what could be happening right now is that this could be the floor right here, which is why, if it did come back down to it, which is obviously not what we want to see, we'd want it to stay off of this previous floor. So bounce off something like that 119.22 or higher, and this way it wouldn't hit sort of this second cut loss. And the reason I have two is just in case you wanted to do like a very tight cut loss or sort of a more relaxed, take on a little bit more risk cut loss. My fan did just pop on my computer, but I can't do anything about that, so apologies if you hear that a bit in the background. FUBO has, I guess a couple of things. So one, it has this really steep downtrend, which is going to flag out by pre-market tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see where that opens and what it's doing. Is it continuing to get pushed down further below this 2059 level, or is it able to pop itself out, work toward that 2285 resistance zone, turn that to support, and then head toward 25? But it does have the potential, because it had this sell-off without much resistance at all, or could we just say without any resistance? It could potentially have the exact same thing on the way up. So it could get itself there, on this day and just fly up throughout that day. So that wouldn't shock me because it's bottomed out so many times here. And this one I had charted back the day that this had happened and said, this might be the beginnings of something that reverses this bigger downtrend. But obviously it basically sad-faced and then held. So it's the hold that's giving me some potential hope for FUBO, but it's a pretty challenging position to be in. The other potential thing you could look for on the bullish side is that if it's coming up to fill this gap. So if it does, that would get it up into the 27s. and would put you in a much better position, and probably would have established several areas of support underneath it. I'm interested to see what develops in this area, since it's sort of like a no man's land right now. NIO is, in my opinion, in really good deal territory. The question now is just sort of like, when does the next bullish trend begin? So the hope for the bullish side is that this 34 caught the floor, and that this 34.59 established its first level of support, and that this 30, what's this level? This 35.58 is establishing its most recent level of resistance. And so then it gives it the opportunity to turn that to support, build the resistance at 36.47, turn that to support, and then hopefully fly itself up into the 38s. So, we'll keep an eye on NIO because there's so much upside there. At this point, in my mind, there's at least 2x upside, potentially by the end of the year, unless like bad catalysts come out or like unexpected things happen. I think the stock itself, would warrant that 2x valuation by the end of the year, in my opinion. DISCA, DISCA, which we covered, I think, once previously at the request of a watcher, has gotten beaten down pretty hard in this white downtrend. What could be happening now, which you're going to have to hope for if you're in the stock or if you're looking for an entry point, is that it starts to walk up this orange line. And then if it does, basically at the end of the day, on the 31st, which I believe is Wednesday, then that would give you a flag out and would potentially propel you up pretty significantly. You'll probably start to get stuck at this 57 level. The orange line will walk you up through this 45.19. And then, you might not hit much until you get into the 50s, actually. So that's what I'd be looking for. Flag out here, propel it up into the 50s, and then start to hit some resistance, around 53, and then again around 57. BlackBerry has been caught in this big downtrend. Not to just keep saying that over and over and over again, but BlackBerry, if we take a look, it has a strong history of filling gaps. These are all gaps that were filled. Yep. And so, we can keep looking for it to throw some gaps. The challenging thing with that is that would require more push downward. But if that does happen, then we could look for gaps to start to appear that we could play on the trend reversal. On the other side, if it can establish some support at this 930 level, then we could look for it to flag out basically at market open on the 31st and see if that gives it enough to jump up toward the high 9s and then get some support there and get itself back over 10. But it's a pretty challenging position, to be honest, right now. I mean, look at this. You just keep zooming out. So, yeah. BIDU has a couple of things. So I know this is a little bit of a weird chart, so let me just show what I have here. So the white line shows what would be its current trend line support. So it could potentially be walking itself up, but it has sort of the same weird pattern as AMC, where the way that it got to this trend line support is just very unnatural. It didn't do it like this. It did it in this weird way. So, and it's also very steep. And so what I wanted to do is basically present a potential alternative channel that could be forming. And this orange channel might not be exact because I didn't draw it as a parallel. I drew it as, this picking up the tops of this area here, and then essentially saying that if the price action breaks this white trend line support, I would next look for it to establish on this orange trend line support, and that could potentially give us this orange channel to play off of. So that's what I'm going to look for from BIDU, and also it's because we have this support line here of this 201.66, and we have a deeper support here of 190.82. So even if it had sort of like a steep drop off in the pre-market and opened up, say at about 200, we could still have the potential for it to be establishing in this channel. And then if it does, we can obviously just draw in the proper channel and follow that up. So a little speculative there, but that's a guess that could be what we might be able to look for. TME, which is new for us, 10-cent music, similar thing here. So this is not a parallel. These are two trend lines to look at. So this would be our top trend line that could be coming in to form this channel. This would be my sort of cut loss if I did have a position. It's held a really good support here, even coming back to here. So I'd look for that to hold, which would mean if it's going to establish this higher lows, which, that's what it's been doing recently, it's going to have to walk up this white trend line. So if so, that's the channel I'd look for it to get itself into, hit some resistance here at 21 and again at 23. So what we'd want it to do is kind of get pretty toward the middle or the upper part of the channel by the time it hits 21, and same thing by the time it hits 23, just to know that it gets stuck there a little bit. It has room to move to stay in the channel. Okay, so that will do it for this video. No matter what you're trading, I wish you the best of luck this week. I hope everyone's week is off to a decent start. And please feel free to find me on Twitter, leave comments below, and I will see you all in the next video.